Hey everybody, welcome to the Otherppl show. I'm Brad Listi and I'm in Los Angeles. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing okay wherever you happen to be. Don't forget to subscribe to this show wherever you listen. You can also subscribe on YouTube. Follow the program on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. So it is Friday, and as such, I'm going to be doing a flashback episode where I dig into the Otherppl archives and share an outtake from an episode out of the past. Today, I will be sharing an outtake from episode 708, my conversation with author and comedian Sam Tallent. Episode 708 first aired on May 26th, 2021. Sam Tallent is, as I said, a comedian. He is the host of a podcast called Chubby Behemoth, and he is the author of a novel entitled Running the Light. For the last decade, Sam Tallent has performed more than 45 weekends a year in North America, Asia, Australia, and Europe. His writing has appeared in Birdy Magazine, on Vice.com, and his comedy has appeared on Comedy Central, TruTV, and VICELAND. Running the Light is an astonishing novel. I was bowled over by it when I read it. It has been heralded as the definitive book on stand-up comedy. Doug Stanhope calls it, quote, the best fictional representation of comedy in any medium ever. And Mark Maron calls it, quote, a beautiful rendering of a dark reality. An outtake from episode 708, my conversation with Sam Tallent, is coming up. A quick reminder about my weekly email newsletter. It is out there. It's waiting for you. You can subscribe at bradlisti.substack.com. The newsletter is simple. I will let you know on a weekly basis about the latest episodes of this program. I also share a list of links to things that I've been reading and finding interesting. I would love it if you would subscribe. To do that, just visit bradlisti.substack.com. And if you are a regular listener of this show, if you tune in episode after episode, if you get something from the work that I do, I hope you will join the Otherppl Patreon community over at patreon.com/otherpplpod. Help keep this show going into the future. All right, so here we go with another flashback. Today's outtake comes once again from episode 708, my conversation with Sam Tallent. It first aired on May 26th, 2021. A reminder that the full episode is available in the feed, so if you like this flashback and you would like to hear more from Sam Tallent, just look for episode 708 wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so here we go, ladies and gentlemen, with this week's flashback. Here I am in conversation with Sam Tallent.
No one wants to touch this thing as far as like the, capital L literature. Like the literati could not give less of a shit about this book, which is a huge bummer because I'm very proud of it. And even my own Denver Post, which has been reviewing my comedy and been a big champion of me, they still wouldn't do a review. They did an artist spotlight type thing where the guy was sure enough to give me enough lines that I could pull out to use like on the back of the book, but they still wouldn't give me a review.
So did you try to sell this to conventional presses?
Yeah, man. Like my literary agent who did it initially was this guy, Birdy Magazine at UTA, who's like a big power player in memoirs. And I sent it to him unsolicited, and he was like, this book rules. And then he like tried to sell it, and he said that we weren't getting offered enough money. So he was like, I don't know what to do, man. Like, who's this book for? What's the audience? And I was like, I don't know, maybe fans of comedy, you know, that thing that everyone loves.
But okay, wait, let me interrupt you, because he said that you're not getting offered enough money. So you were getting some offer?
I mean, I think we got like $5,000. We got like 2 offers of $5,000, and he was like, well, I don't think it didn't interest him because he's used to like huge memoir money, and I don't think he really wanted to like worry about it, which is fine. And then he was like, dude, just sell this book yourself and you'll probably make a lot more money. And I did, and like luckily it worked out, but I still can't get, you know, the MFA crowd to give me a wink and a nod.
How many copies have you sold?
I've sold 14,000, Amazon and Out of My Garage combined. And then the audiobook, I don't know how many I've sold yet because I sold those rights, but I mean, it's doing really well, man. I mean, it's still in the top 10 of like crime fiction on Audible, and in the top, last I checked, 2,500 in just straight up fiction.
Wait, crime fiction?
Yeah, I know. I didn't list it there.
They put it in crime fiction?
Yeah, they did. Tantor Media Group, those geniuses.
I should say to our listeners that this is not a work of crime fiction. I would never. I would not characterize it that way.
I wouldn't either.
It's literary fiction.
Thank you, man. I know. That's what I said. But, you know, you can like skew all the metrics if you put it in like self-help or crime fiction or whatever. So Tantor did whatever they had to generate some buzz. I don't know, man. I signed away the rights, and then I'm not used to not having full control over everything I do. And the decisions they made to market this book, which were like almost nil, every one of them infuriated me. And I was just like pissed the whole time.
Did you do the reading of the audiobook?
No, I had a bunch of comedians read individual chapters. So like Mark Maron did a chapter, and Bert Kreischer, and Doug Stanhope, Chris Gethard, like a bunch of my friends. I just called in a favor finally, and all of them read a chapter, which was kind of a marketing move on my part. I think I don't want to say the book suffered for it, but it was a good move to have like 15 different comedians talk about the book on their individual podcast to each of their unique demographics. And that moved a lot of units that way.
I was going to say, well, I mean, that's like nice. I think that's a nice option for you. You're smart. I think smart and shrewd to take advantage of it. But I guess I'm thinking of the way in which the comedy community has really established itself in this medium, like in the podcasting medium. I feel like it was sort of at the forefront for natural reasons, like comedians talking to microphones anyway. You know, it's an easy step to take. But the word community is like worth repeating, because like that's what these things like should be for at their best. You know, a way to get the word out about good work, and a way for artists of a similar tribe to help one another out, even if that artist happens to be working in a different medium.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I started comedy, it was all about the sense of community, and now it's a lot more like, I don't know, there's all these disparate parts, you know, because comedy's so boutique now. So you can find the exact kind of comedy that you like. And whereas in the past, you just saw what Comedy Central put out for half hours, or what HBO put out, or what was on Conan. And now you can find these niche, like, comedians that you like, and they can be your favorite comic. And me being a professional comedian for 15 years, I might never have heard of that person. So it was cool for like comedy as a whole to get behind this book and kind of hold it up as like, I mean, Stanhope and Maron both said it was the definitive work of fiction in any medium on comedy. And when your heroes are saying that kind of shit, like, it's really surreal, dude. It was really tough to like, I mean, Stanhope called me and he was like, hey, come out and do my podcast. And I was like, cool, what's the Zoom? And he's like, no, come to my house. I want you to like come stay with me. And that was just a lot of dreams coming true on this thing.
I can imagine. I mean, so Stanhope, and he lives out in like Arizona, right? And
yeah, he lives in Bisbee on the border.
That's right. He's got like I feel like he's got a compound. Is that a accurate characterization?
For sure, man. I mean, it's as close to Waco as I've ever been. They're like party line Democrats who are also carnies. It's very strange down there. Like, everyone's on mushrooms, but they're like, you know, they're very friendly, and he couldn't have been more generous. Like, all he does is eat caviar and like make drinks for people. He's so weird. He's such an iconoclast in every way.
Well, that's great though. I like that there's somebody out there living their life like that. And, I think we need people like that in the culture, more of them.
Yeah, he's totally, he's kind of like, he forgets that he followed all the rules early in his career. Like, he hosted the Man Show and did the Aspen Comedy Festival, and he'll try and give me advice. He's like, oh, you don't need the industry, kid. And it's like, all right, dude, but like, you had the industry for 15 years before you like seceded and moved down to the desert to, go scorpion hunting. So it's just, the perspective is lost eventually, but everything good that's come from this book has come from him saying it's good. So yeah, I'm just indebted to him.
All right, so let's talk about the writing of the book. How long did it take you, first of all?
It took me less than a year. I lived in Vegas for the first 2 years of my wife's medical school. She was in like, we moved from Denver where I had just had my friends around me all the time, and I could just like go to their houses and smoke weed and like play FIFA all day. So I wasn't really like driven to do anything. So when we moved to Vegas, I was really lonely, and I was like widowed by her being at med school all day. So I just was alone, and I always wrote short stories, and big reader of fiction. I love novels. And I like wrote on like, I don't know. I got through like 120,000 words of two other things. And then this guy, Billy Ray Schaefer, I was writing a novel about his son. It was supposed to be the son of a comedian. And then I got to that first chapter in my book, just ended up being a part of that. And then the book just flew out of me. And I wrote every day that I was home. I'd be on the road like 3 days a week. So I think I wrote it over the course of like 10 to 12 months, 4 days a week, like 8 hours a day. Damn.
But this thing had been brewing in you for a while.
I guess, man. I didn't know it was in there. But as soon as I figured out who this guy was, just like all the decisions he made seemed to be really organic. And when you read a book and you can like feel the wires, you can see like the puppet strings, and all the characters are like doing all this crazy shit just to serve the plot. Like that, you can see the puppetry in my first two things I was working on, and I felt like in this book, like, you couldn't see any of the special effects. Like everything he did, like made sense for who he was.
Yeah, it felt real, and lived. And I feel too like something that I notice in works of fiction that I admire, and works of fiction that work, is that there's a vessel. That's what I always call it. Like it's like a contained unit of time. And this book is working on a clock, and you never feel at any moment in it that you're not moving towards something. And I don't know, like I don't want to give away too much, but I could feel him moving towards his family. Like that's the driver of the narrative for me, and it was keeping me turning pages because it's going to come to that moment. And
man.
I'm curious to know if that was there from the jump. Like, did you have that in your head, or were you discovering it as you wrote?
I mean, for sure, I was discovering as I wrote. Every day it was, because I don't have an education in how to write. I've just read a bunch of books, so I would write, and then I'd be like, well, what would his next day look like after opening for these guys on the road and for so many years? Like, well, I know what we do in the morning. I know how he would pass his time. And then when he got to Denver in the book, I mean, it just made sense that he would try and reconnect with his family, Like, it sounds so pretentious, and I don't want to be falsely humble or anything, like, but I didn't know what I was doing, man. I was just figuring it out just like everyone else was, kind of.
Yeah, but I think, like, you talk about getting an education. Reading books is how you get an education.
For sure, man. Yeah.
And how to write books. I don't think, and then you got to just stumble and figure it out for yourself. And I feel like every book is its own beast. That's what I've taken away from having conversations with writers over the years, is that it's not like you do it once and you do it well and then you got it. Like, yes, you pick up some skill, but then you start over again. It's like you got to learn how to do that one. It's its own thing.
That's what all the writers I like always said, was just like, books are made out of books. And I can definitely tell when I'm reading, like I reread my book for editing, I can be like, oh shit, I was reading a bunch of Graham Greene during this chapter. Like the columns are really flying in these sentences. Or, when you're reading too much Dennis Johnson and there's a bunch of lavender in the sky and you're like, oh shit. You realize what a hack you are in the end, but luckily in writing, if you can synthesize it and like put a spin on it, that's what writing is, I think.
So did you, when you were the kind of amusing yourself with writing this book while you were, as you put it, like widowed in Las Vegas while your wife was at med school and all your friends were back in Denver, like, was it something that you were doing seriously with a serious intent to publish, or was it something you were doing just to kind of keep yourself from going crazy? Do you know what I'm saying? Like how much business thinking was going into it versus I'm just going to entertain myself and try to keep my brain healthy?
Man, there's so little business thinking that goes into any part of Sam Tallent Industries. I'm so bad at that shit. I really wanted to, because my reading's such a big part of my family and stuff, and I've always been such an admirer of fiction that I was like, well, maybe I can do this and put out a book and maybe sell like 500 copies. But I just had to do it, like you said, to not go mental in the desert, because you can't even go outside in Vegas, man. You can't go outside until midnight because it's 120 degrees. So I was just locked in this fucking house, losing it, smoking way too much weed. So no, it wasn't like a preconceived situation. I'm glad it worked out, but I just had to get it out of me. I had to prove I could do it.
Did you write while stoned?
Oh, yeah. Brutally stoned. And since then, I've quit weed. So now I'm writing the second book, and it's like, oh, this is so much harder. I'm so much more in my own way.
Oh, really? Because I have a complicated relationship with weed. Like I like the idea of being able to be an elegant stoner, and I used to smoke a ton of weed.
Yeah.
Especially back when I lived in Colorado. But as I've gotten older, I have kids. I don't tolerate it. Like I have a very low tolerance, first of all, but on any kind of consistent basis, I find I can't hack it. Like it fucks with my head eventually, and I get annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, I smoked weed every day from 13 until 29. Just like mad amounts of weed, man, just burning it down all day, every day. And so did all my friends, and the lifestyle of a comedian lends itself to being stoned all the time because you only work like an hour or 2 hours a day. And then when you're on stage and you're stoned, you're like, oh, I'm the most creative man alive. Like, I'm fucking Jim Morrison up here riding the snake. And then I just had as soon as I had more responsibility and realized like how precious life is as far as like it being your only chance through, I started having these crazy heart palpitations and like thinking I was dying all the time. And, like my best friend, it was like walking in on your best friend fucking your wife. Like it was a huge letdown. And now I can't smoke weed anymore without just flipping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a natural progression. I mean, to some degree, it's a natural progression. I know there are exceptions. I have friends who seem to be high-functioning stoners. They're like a better version of themselves when they get high. They do all the shit that I do. They just do it high.
Yeah.
And like, kudos, I wonder what it's like. But like, I don't have the wiring.
I know what it's like, and I'm jealous of those people still. Like Doug Benson said in Super High Me, he's like, weed just makes everything a little bit more fun. And I totally think that's true. I miss being chonged all day, every day, dude. It's rough. It's rough knowing what it was like and not having it.
But you just, like, it shifted for you, though. You have a panic attack now, basically, if you smoke weed.
Yeah, for sure. I have a severe panic disorder, severe panic response to weed. It's nuts.
Oh, man. So, okay, so you're writing this book. You're stoned. You're in Las Vegas. It's 120 degrees. And you have kind of like a vague idea of publishing it, like putting it in print and selling a few copies. But you had to have a growing sense as you were writing this thing that it was working. Like it was good, I have to believe that. Like at what point did your dreams start to expand? Did your idea for what's possible for this book start to expand, or did it expand?
Yeah, man. I mean, I knew it was good. That's one thing about everything that I create. Like I really want it to be good, or I won't let anyone see it. Like no one read this book until I had it finished in the way that I wanted it finished. And I think it was right after he meets up with his son in Boulder and they have that dinner in the barbecue restaurant.
Right.
I worked so hard on that fucking that passage, man. And when I got through it, I was like, holy shit, like you're writing. You're actually doing it, man. Like way to go. And then the final 2 or 3 chapters of that book I think I finished the book in like a month. Yeah, and I was like, this is good. Way to go. And then I let my dad read it, who turned me on to all the cool books that I read. And he was like, holy shit, you wrote this? Like, I knew you were smart, but this is startling. He literally said startling. And then I got all weepy-eyed. And then I was like, okay, cool. Well, you think it's good. So then I was like, well, how do I monetize this? How do I make this into merch?
All right, guys, there we have it. That is today's flashback, an outtake from episode 708, my conversation with Sam Tallent, author of the novel Running the Light. Episode 708 first aired on May 26th, 2021. If you like what you just heard and you want to get the full conversation into your head, go to wherever you get your podcasts and search for episode 708. It is in the feed, waiting for you. For more information on Sam Tallent, his novel, his comedy, all of it, go to samtallent.com. Follow him on Instagram and Twitter. Check him out on YouTube. Once again, the book is called Running the Light. You should read it. If you like stand-up comedy, read Running the Light and thank me later. I would love it if you signed up for my weekly email newsletter over at bradlisti.substack.com. I would love it even more if you joined the Otherppl Patreon community over at patreon.com/otherpplpod. Help keep this show going into the future. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen. You can also subscribe on YouTube. Follow the show on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. If you have 2 minutes and you want to help me out, please give this show a rating wherever you listen. Rate it, review it. It helps the show find new listeners. If you want to get an Otherppl t-shirt or sign up for my book club, you can do that at otherppl.com, the show's official website. And if you want to read my latest book, it is a novel called Be Brief and Tell Them Everything, available in trade paperback, ebook, and audiobook editions. I narrate the audiobook, so check it out if that sounds like something you might be interested in. It's a novel. It's called Be Brief and Tell Them Everything. All right. Coming up on Sunday, I will be in conversation with Miriam Lacroix. Her debut novel is called How It Works Out. It is the official May pick of the Otherppl Book Club, available from the Overlook Press. Miriam Lacroix on this show in like 48 hours.